There's going to be a whole group of pilots that are going to be really pissed off about what Starlink had done today, maybe yesterday. I don't know. March 2nd. So we all got an email this morning saying, yeah, our Starlinks are rendered useless for aviation use unless we get a aviation plan, which I'll talk about that in a second. But Starlink was supposed to be the thing that we add on with ADS-B in, basically to improve situational awareness, get us out of bad situations. If we have a radio failure, we'll cover all of that, and why there's going to be a lot of pilots pissed off. I know personally, me, I'm not really the happiest right now about this. But yeah, let's talk about it. My name's Captain Ethan. Today is a very beautiful day to fly planes, and let's just start with the video because, well, I don't really feel like rambling about my life. I want to ramble about this. Starlink was supposed to be the thing that was going to revolutionize aviation forever with the Roam 50 gig, well, the $50 Roam plan. They changed it to 100 gigabytes, but that's besides the point. The point is that pilots were excited that because they had in-flight internet, so they had safety, weather, and connectivity within the flight deck of the airplane. Well, Starlink this morning, they capped it again at 100 miles per hour. Now, you guys are like, okay, I'm flying a little Cub. This might not be a big deal. Good for you. Us Cessna pilots, us Diamond pilots, us Archer pilots, anyone who goes over 87 knots, which is also known as 100 miles per hour, yeah, we're not happy about this. This basically means that most airplanes literally cannot use Starlink anymore unless upgrading to one of these ridiculous plans, which I will get into. I promise you guys, I will get into the plans because you guys are gonna laugh. So just trust me, you guys are gonna laugh. Let's dive deeper because I know pilots were we were really happy with what we had. We were really grateful for it, but yeah, now it's gone. Okay, so let's talk about why pilots were excited about Starlink, especially me. Why was I excited about Starlink? Well, we have affordable satellite internet anywhere. It's literally $50 a month. We get 100 gigabytes. We can use it anywhere within the United States. None of us, especially people my rating and my hours range, aren't really going international over water, so we didn't really have to worry about that. But over land, we could use, well, Starlink in order to, well, send a text message, pull a weather chart, like a prog chart, anything chart related on ForeFlight we could pull up that does not, how do I want to word this? We could pull up anything on an iPad that doesn't require ADS-B. So we don't need to get ADS-B weather, we don't need ADS-B radar, we don't need ADS-B METARs. We have the Starlink, which can give us all that as well. I still use ADS-B as well. Let me explain what I'm talking about, just so you guys are confused. Let me pull up my iPad, imagery. If you guys know the imagery tab, you kind of need internet for it, but we can pull up charts like this in the sky, even when they update. So we can get a big picture. It's like being on the ground, having internet on the ground, but inside the plane. Let's put this back here. So this means that we have affordable satellite internet anywhere, no really dead zones in the sky. Well, I mean, we do have a lot of dead zones with cell phone coverage because, well, cell towers don't beam the signal up. So we can use our phones in the sky. We have access to weather information that we wouldn't have solely on reliance on ADS-B, and we have reliable communication backup. For example, if our radios were to go out in the plane, we still have our cell phones and our Bose A30 so we can call the tower and get a landing clearance. Or if we're at 7,500 feet and we lose our radios, and you can come up with any situation with a radio failure that we would need a Starlink or a cell phone or yada, yada, yada. So why did we really care about this? So rural airports, they don't really have the best cell phone coverage. Flying at altitude, we don't get any cell phone coverage. And over long cross countries, okay, we're gonna get a little bored. If we have passengers with us, they might get bored as well staring out the window. So they have some in-flight entertainment, maybe not for us pilots because we have to pay attention to what's on the screens and what's outside the sky. But it gave us a good safety angle because weather can change fast, node temps can be randomly dropped, we can easily plan for diversions, and there's an emergency communication redundancy. I cannot talk today, sorry. But yeah, so this was basically the biggest safety tool that you could buy for, let's see here, $300 plus $50 a month. It wasn't just a convenience, it was a big layer of safety that could be used in the future. I know personally I got it because, well, I'm working on getting my instrument rating. Weather can change fast, and I want to know the big picture because if I'm in an airplane, I want to know if I'm going to be able to stay in this hold and see what the weather's going to be like, or I want to know if I'm going to divert, or I want to know, should I even continue on the route? Because let's say I'm on a 4-hour long cross country and we're about an hour and a half in. I want to know if the weather's starting to deteriorate at our destination. I apologize for me not being able to talk today. I don't know why the stutter is just off the charts. So let's talk about the changes to the plans and why this basically makes the Starlink unusable for us general aviation pilots. I don't know if you guys know. Well, maybe a lot of you guys pilots in training know. Us student pilots are broke. Well, student, private, instrument, commercial, and training, yada, yada, yada. We're broke. We spend all of our money on flying, so we can't really drop a boatload of money a month on, whatchamacallit, in-flight internet. You know, we just don't have that in the budget, really. So the new limitation is that you can only use the Starlink roam plan under 100 miles per hour, which is about 87 knots, give or take. Let's see here, in kilometers per hour, it is 160 kilometers per hour. That's what it is for your European people. We don't use kilometers. Actually, well, I guess Canadians use kilometers too. Anyone that's not in the United States, 160 kilometers per hour, 87 knots for flying, and then 100 miles per hour. So this basically means Cessna 172, DA-40s, SR-22s, and even like the slowest of the slowest trainer planes are basically unable to use this unless paying a ridiculous amount of... I'm just gonna spoil it for you guys. If you guys want the 450 mile per hour plan, it is $1,000 a month. $1,000 a month. For the 300 mile per hour plan, it's still $250 a month. And that's just for the speed itself, like the speed limitation. That's not included. Well, I guess it does include data, but let me get to that in a second. So basically, there's a speed service restriction, which means aviation use is intentionally blocked unless you have specifically an aviation plan. Why? Well, I don't know. Someone comment down why in the comments below. But basically, you're gonna cruise. I'm gonna use the 172 because it's like the slowest plane that I know cruises at. It will cruise around 100 to 110 knots. The Diamond, you can probably push 130, 140 true. And then the Cirrus, well, I mean, you're going over 150 anyways. So you're gonna have to get an aviation plan. Now let's talk about the aviation plans because they're kind of ridiculous. So we're gonna go over the 300 mile per hour plan, $250 a month for 20 gigabytes. And then for every gigabyte over 20, it's $10 each. Okay, 300 miles per hour. Now let's get to the 450 mile per hour plan. 450 miles per hour for $1,000, mind you, $1,000 a month. It's 20 gigabytes and $50 per extra gigabyte. $50 per gigabyte. That's more than like a Delta flight. $1,000 a month. That's just ridiculous. Mind you, before the new year started, the Roam 50 gig plan was $50 a month, and then now the Roam 100 gig plan is $50 a month as well. And the speed restriction before, I think, was 300 to 450 miles per hour before. But yeah, we had in-flight internet for $50 and now it's $1,000 a month. That's just ridiculous. Anyways, let's do math. So on average, whenever I have used a Starlink while I've been flying, I have used probably about a gig. That's included me and Hunter. And this is just like casual use of using ForeFlight, phones for music, yada, yada, yada. This is about what would it be? Let's see here, that was a 2-hour cross country, no passengers, and it was about a gigabyte. So when you start adding in passengers, especially my sister, if you add my sister as a passenger, say goodbye to the data limit because that's just gonna be exceeded. You're gonna be blowing through 20 gigs fast, especially if you're on the 450 or the 450 mile per hour plan. You're gonna run through that 20 gigs really fast. And if you need an extra 20 gigs, do I have a calculator over here? I do. Let's say you need an extra 20 gigs on top of the 20 that you get. You're gonna be paying another $1,000. I don't know if it's focusing or not. But you're basically gonna be paying another $1,000 for an extra 20 gigs, which I just think is ridiculous in my opinion. So how is this gonna hit general aviation the hardest? Well, okay, number one, Business aviation probably won't get hit that much. That's probably why they put this into place, is because they want to extract more money out of business aviation, like your Part 135s, your fractional 91s. Airlines, I think they have their own, don't quote me on this, on the airline part, but I think they have special deals with Starlink, so I don't really know about that, but I'm pretty sure they have special deals with Starlink. But for business aviation, it's probably not going to hit them much. But for us general aviation pilots, I would say basically anyone who's around my hours range, my experience range, my age range as well. Especially the age range, I feel like, because I know there's a lot of pilots around my age range. They can't really afford $1,000 a month. So this is practically going to hit owner pilots paying personally, especially us. Flight schools, CFIs, and basically weekend flyers. Well, I wouldn't say I'm a weekend flyer. I'm still kind of in training, but whenever I'm not in training, I'm more of a weekend flyer. So this is gonna hit us the hardest. So if we go down the whole budget, it's gonna hit people my experience level, my budget range, and my age level the most. Whereas business aviation, airline aviation is not really gonna hit them the most. It's gonna hit us general aviation pilots. Honestly, they really should have the speed limit up to 250 knots because a lot of us pilots aren't going to be going more than 250 knots, but that's besides the point. So how is this going to affect safety? Because this is probably the biggest reason why I got a Starlink was for safety. Number one, weather diversion. When you're en route VFR, let's say 7,500 feet because, well, it's Florida and it gets really hot. Well, and also because it's Florida, you're going to have weather and you're going to have to divert. You're going to need to know where the weather is. You're going to need to know what the bigger picture is. You can't really just rely off of METARs. You can't rely off of NOTAMs. If there's a convective segment, yeah, that's one thing. And then if you also have in-flight radar, but you also want to know, like, okay, what are the prog charts saying? Let's get an updated briefing, yada, yada, yada. And when you're on flight following, you can't, well, I guess you could cancel flight following, but you probably don't want to cancel flight following just to call up a flight service station on a frequency, which, I'm just going to spell this out now. I would say 80% of you guys have never called a flight service station in the air while flying. I know personally I haven't. So I'm going to kind of assume that you guys haven't as well. We just use ForeFlight for our weather briefings. So you probably guys do that too. We're going to need a weather briefing. We don't get cell service at 7,500 feet in the air. How are we going to do it now? And in emergency situations, this one's going to be kind of the big one. This is the biggest reason why I got the Starlink as well, is in case if I was ever in an emergency. Let's say we had an alternator failure or navigational issues. We want to get down on the ground as soon as possible, especially if we have an alternator failure and we're at 7,500 feet and we're not really close to an airport. We're going to want to be in contact with somebody in case something happens. And also data connectivity, if we lose that, this could hurt our decision-making process as well because we're not going to have all the information that we would need. Having the Starlink with us while flying, we're going to be able to pull information that, let's say, we didn't prepare for on the ground. There's been a few situations that this could happen. Basically, Starlink was going to be a low-cost redundancy layer to safety, and now they kind of screwed it up for us. So why did Starlink probably do this? Well, there's a few possible reasons. They either have a lot of network congestion concerns. Trust me, there's a lot of people with Starlinks. I didn't know how big the market for Starlinks were. Liability exposure. So like, let's say somebody was distracted. Aviation certification complexity. This is probably a big one because I know with the aviation plan, they make you, it said in the email too. I'll throw it up on screen as well. Identity verifications required for both plans and include submission of a valid passport and aircraft tail number. Basically, they're just trying to bring down the liability on themselves, I'm gonna assume. And then also protecting the higher revenue aviation market as well. So here's the bigger problem for aviation. Aviation innovation already moves slowly. There has not really been that much that has changed in the past, I'd say 5 years in the aviation world. Aviation innovation is just gonna be a lot slower now as well. This could have really just sped it up. And especially us GA pilots, we really rely on trickle down technology as well. So like the Starlink was probably like the biggest thing that helped us with while flying. And then this is also a missed opportunity to modernize GA connectivity as well, because in the airline world, in the business aviation world, you have all the resources to yourself. You have in-flight internet, you have the most advanced avionics in the world. Us general aviation pilots, we don't have that. We could be flying a general 6-pack with an iPad, and this was an instrument or like a $400 piece of equipment that increases safety a lot by having the in-flight internet and also the connectivity that we would have in the sky. There's not really a solution for pilots though. That's the issue. We can either fly at a lower altitude to have LTE or 5G if we even get 5G. And I don't think we even get 5G in the air. I think it's just LTE still. And then we only have ForeFlight and ADS-B in. ADS-B in, there's, well, really two standards. There's TISB and FISB, so Traffic Information Services and Flight Information Service. I think it's Flight Information Services for FIS. I could be wrong on the acronym. But basically, we only get weather and traffic in the air, where we can't really look up, okay, well, which airport would probably be the best? Well, I guess we can still kind of make that decision without the internet. We also don't have redundancy, so if, let's say our Sentry broke midair, we don't really have a backup plan for that, for example. Or if we lose our radio comms, we don't have a backup. Well, I guess you're trained on what to do if you have a radio failure. But having the increased connectivity in the sky can make a radio failure way less stressful than without having it. It's probably the best way to explain it. My personal take, I don't really like the fact that now we're going to be forced to either pay $250 to $1,000 a month for in-flight internet when we had the option for, well, $50. But I know this price, the pricing model that they're gonna that they have now is going to render a lot of Starlink minis unusable for pilots. Unless they're like loaded with money, then I guess it doesn't really affect them that much. But I know a lot of people my age range that have Starlink minis for aviation use. They're going to be hit a lot with them. And I kind of just dropped, I don't know, $500 on both the Starlink and all the accessories with it. And now it's kind of just rendered useless. Well, I live in Florida, so if we have a hurricane, then I guess it's not useless at that point. We weren't asking for luxury Wi-Fi as general aviation pilots. We were just asking for usable connectivity within the sky. So basically now it's a priced out tool that could have made flying a lot safer. I'm gonna have to splice this somewhere in the video, so sorry for the intermission, wherever it is. But let's talk about ADS-B as well with the comparison to Starlink. So ADS-B, they will provide FISB weather information, radar imagery, METARS, TAFs, NOTAMs, and traffic information. It's free once it's equipped. We don't have to pay a monthly subscription for it unless you guys have the SiriusXM one. Then you guys do you. But I have a Sentry, so I'm gonna talk about the Sentry point of view. We just pay for the Sentry. We just get the information from ground stations and from other airplanes as well. It's amazing. It's a good safety upgrade that general aviation has gotten at a pretty good price point. Well, I mean, technically it's free, and besides paying for the receiver. The big limitations is that there's going to be a radar delay of 15 or 5 to 15 minutes. This really matters with thunderstorms, fast-moving cells, and convective weather. For example, a storm that's moving 30 to 40 knots can be miles from where ADS-B showed it last. This alone could be a big deal because if we're waiting, let's say 15 minutes, the storm's going to be moving pretty far ways from where ADS-B has shown it. ADS-B also requires ground stations, so you can kind of have areas in mountainous areas, rural airports, or offshore routes, even though, well, I guess we couldn't really use Starlink offshore. But this could kind of be a little bit of an issue as well with ADS-B. And ADS-B cannot provide updated graphical weather tools, satellite imagery refresh, winds aloft updates on demand, filing flight plans, alternate airport research, communication apps, or messaging or coordination. It's broadcast, not interactive. So sometimes satellite imagery could be really good, especially if we need to know like where some of the cloud layers are, or if we need to pull up Aviation Weather Center on Google. But we can't really get updated graphical weather tools in the air with ADS-B alone. And also, ADS-B is one direction information. Starlink could have allowed pulling updated weather briefs, checking new NOTAMs, like that just came out without having to be beamed up, real-time weather models, and contacting ground support if we have a radio failure. Starlink was supposed to be an affordable backup, near real-time data, global coverage, well, up to a certain limit. I'm gonna say United States coverage. I have it written as global coverage because you can use Starlink just about anywhere in the world, depending on the plan that you have. It's also interactive, so let's say, I'm gonna use a really good example. In May, I'm doing a flight to Atlanta. There might not be a time building video for that. But let's say I'm gonna be 45 minutes to an hour delayed because of fuel stop in Valdosta. After I'm up in the air at cruising altitude, everything's fine. I can send a quick text message to my grandmother saying, hey, I'm gonna be a little bit delayed. Don't wait up too much, yada, yada, yada. There's that as well. And then we also get continuous updates with Starlink as well. Anyways, that's enough about my rant. I know a lot of pilots are gonna be pissed off. There's not really gonna be a replacement. I've been trying to look all day for a replacement possibly, but there's not really a viable option unless there's gonna be a competitor that comes in the market. I can think of 2 competitors. I can think of AST Space Mobile doing something for aviation, the general aviation pilots. Starlink can also get they could get their stuff together a little bit and probably come up with an idea that would be reasonable for us general aviation pilots. Or maybe, I think Amazon was making a space program as well. We're gonna need a competitor in the market if we're gonna see some change, and we're also gonna need to see some aviation innovation, because I know in-flight internet, it could be a luxury. It's also a big safety tool. I see it more as a safety tool than kind of a luxury, because I'm not going to be watching Netflix while flying an airplane. I'm probably going to be using I know I'm going to be using the Starlink in order to pull weather information, or maybe file an updated flight plan, or get an updated weather briefing as well for a flight. We're definitely going to have to see some change. So that's enough with my rant. My name's Captain Ethan, and if you guys enjoyed this rant, make sure you guys go hit that like button down below. Subscribe if you guys are new to the channel, and if you guys know of any replacements, let me know down in the comments below. But yeah, I no longer can recommend the Starlink for aviation use because of the price point. I think it's actually disappointing. So you guys have a good one, and I promise I'll make more YouTube videos. I've just been insanely slammed with a bunch of stuff going on.